in a 2-hour period. So it's a test. I could see somebody challenging it, like I say, if they had an unusual good or something, because the 2 hours doesn't seem to be tied to the interstate commerce or not. But a lot of times that's what we see, right? States make up these arbitrary numbers, and it takes the U.S. Supreme Court to tell us where that line was. So, and that we don't know, but that's exactly it. When interstate commerce stops, that's when your local regulations can take over.
And so basically what I heard, please tell me if I'm getting this wrong,
Yep.
is the mechanics and the process that California is laying out here is okay. There might be an argument on 2 hours. I need 5 hours because it's a something. And
yeah, it's a windmill, and they got to carefully take the windmill off with a crane and assemble it, right?
Yeah.
It takes more than 2 hours to take the windmill off the back of the truck.
So what if they did a permit process? Hey, I'm delivering human hearts, and it takes a special process to get them off the truck. That's 16 hours. And they go, here's your special permit. Because they do permits for trucks.
Right. Yeah. And, permits and things are generally allowed as long as they're not, the cases basically come down as long as they're not designed to interfere with interstate commerce. So, for instance, the speed limit, right? So this truck crosses the line from Nevada or Arizona or whatever, headed into California. Now the California speed limit takes over, right? And you can't say I'm interstate commerce, so I'm not following the California speed limit.
Right.
So they do allow some regulation of interstate commerce by the states. There's been some cases about truck safety equipment and stuff, and how much is too far and how much isn't. But for the large part, basically, you can still set a speed limit for the truck. You could still have, you can still do your agricultural inspection. You can still do your weight limit checks on the truck, even though the truck's in interstate commerce. You can check the weight. So yeah, there are some still local requirements. Permit for a certain width, permit for a certain length. So yeah, I could see a permit process being part of this.
But there might be a challenge on the 2 hour suggestion, possibly.
It just pops into my head that, yeah, I mean, a 2 hour seems arbitrary, and I could see somebody arguing, hey, I need more than 2 hours, for whatever commercial activity I'm doing, right? It takes, I don't know how long it takes to pump a, tanker truck empty. It might take more than 2 hours, to assemble a crane. There could be some deliveries that might take more than 2 hours. So I could see somebody saying, hey, 2 hours isn't a test of whether I'm in interstate commerce or not.
But there's no way that California can in any way say, hey, there's an outbreak in Kentucky. And I get the federal government says, we don't really believe that it's that bad. And we're following our own data. And we say, go ahead and go for it. And you drive into California, and we literally see the guy coughing, but he's got a mask on.
Yeah.
And then he comes into California, and he only takes 5 minutes at a gas stop. But that gas stop is next to a poor community because poor people tend to live near the freeway because the property is cheaper.
Sure.
And so now they go to the local Quickie Mart. That guy, he didn't mean to, but he also doesn't believe that it's a real threat. Coughed on his hand, grabbed a gas pump, grabbed some candy, bottled water. Now we got a little Adelanto poor community suddenly has 50% COVID-19 infection.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about that.
My best guess is under the way the Constitution's been interpreted, the way the Commerce Clause has been interpreted, I don't think so, right? It's interstate commerce. It's in the hands of the federal government. If you read the U.S. Constitution, it says interstate commerce can be regulated by the federal government. Now, and then you have a long line of Supreme Court cases that really made that broad, right? It's, we have 200 years of the Supreme Court largely saying almost everything's interstate commerce. And some of that was done for what people thought was a lot of the right thing, right? So I think I mentioned last time we spoke, there's a case with a local restaurant in Alabama, and the local restaurant in Alabama said, hey, I don't have to serve black people because it's not interstate commerce. And then, probably for what people thought was the right reason, the Supreme Court said, well, your little local stand in Alabama, you're buying, all your supplies. And even if you're just buying your supplies in Alabama, you're part of the national market for restaurant supplies. Therefore, running a restaurant in Alabama is interstate commerce, right? So now you got a case from the 1960s that goes against it. It sounds very similar to what you're talking about, right? They're saying everything's interstate commerce, and they did that so that the civil rights laws would apply locally. And now it's going to work the other direction in COVID-19, which is often what happens in the law, right? We have these unintended consequences.
Fascinating. Because Gavin Newsom announced his Western States Pact on, I believe, April 13th.
Yep.
Or April 23rd, something like that. Trump said he was thinking about reopening the economy, making that federal directive. And then Gavin Newsom and the governors of Oregon and Washington come together and issue a joint declaration saying, we're going to have our own opening up things on our own thing. And maybe we listen to the federal government and maybe we don't. And
yeah,
the big news. And what I'm hearing from you, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, is that's a nice threat, but there's not that whole much he can do to stop people coming in on trains, planes, roads, seaports are all under some sort of federal authority.
That's right. There's a lot of federal authority and a lot of stuff's interstate commerce. Yes. So, you're going to have a hard time stopping that under existing law. Now you can go to Congress, right? I mean, you've got a pretty good block there. You've got Oregon, California, and Washington. You go back and, amend the law federally and take stuff out of interstate commerce theoretically, or add additional regulations on the interstate commerce, right? So you can get that block of 3 states there and throw in some other states. I know Michigan's being very, very closed and they're being very protective, right? So you could bring together a block of states and theoretically amend the law. But yeah, right now it's interstate commerce, so it's federal. So your answer is to go back to the federal level and say, we're going to change the rules.
Which is back to the first conversation I think we had almost a year ago. Yeah. And I think the topic was how the federal government can't seem to pass any laws and is largely dysfunctional, and the polarization of left and
yes.
So full circle.
Full circle.
I guess. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We are struggling for information down here, and thank you so much for taking help us out.
Yeah, my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Okay, I'll post this and I'll send you a link.
Okay, sounds good. All right, man. Catch you soon.
All right, and stay safe.